Hey there, and welcome to Happy, Healthy, and Skeptical. I am Jennifer Hobson, and I am here with Christy Palermo as we start episode 5, Growth Habits. So before we even get started, Christy, I love that we have been starting with a question, and I want to continue that, but it is a two-part question, so I want to throw a curveball your way. And the first part of the question is, what is the best habit that you have created? And the second part is, what habit do you still have that really sabotages your growth and success currently? So those are two big questions I want to throw quickly at you, and I would love to hear what the answer is to those.
Good questions. So the habit that I would say I've really clearly stuck with is a morning routine. And I've been doing that to some degree for like 15 years. And it's developed over time, and I've gained parts, lost parts. And it's not always 100% perfect. And there are days where it doesn't even happen. But the days where it does, and for me, a morning routine is journaling and reading personal development books. And then a lot of times I'm adding in movement, or maybe it's later in the day, but my morning routine is always journaling and reading, and my tizzy, which is the detox tea and fizz, energy fizz sticks. So those three things are like non-negotiable. And the days that I do them, I will just say, are the days that my mindset up in a stronger way, and it sets me up for a more productive day, a better day than the days that I don't do it. 100% I see a difference in those. And then the second part to your question was what I'm doing that is holding me back.
Before we get into the second part, it's funny because I could probably have answered that question for you because, and I think this is so important, like you're not just blowing smoke up someone's ass. Like this, I have seen you when we're traveling together. I see you still do those things, right? That is the habit you have created. And it's not even that you're necessarily still committed to it, but you have done it for so long. It's a natural part of your day. And yeah, sometimes days don't go as planned. So maybe something gets in your way, but I can say I've not only watched you personally, but if I follow you on social media, I see a lot of times you're posting the picture of your tea, and not that we've been on Instagram for 15 years, but I've seen the consistency in that habit. So I probably could have answered that for you. So it's kind of great that you're the one that said that's the best habit that you've created. So just kind of re-asking that second part is, what habit do you still have that sabotages your growth and success? Because not all habits are good, right?
That's true. Not all habits are good. And the thing that holds me back is honestly limiting thoughts that still creep in, even with doing personal development. The times when I'm not doing that stuff, it gets louder and stronger. But it's still limiting thoughts, limiting beliefs that I hear. It's like I catch myself, and I actually was just having a conversation this morning about this, and that sometimes all of a sudden I'll just become aware of like the thought that is going through something maybe that I'm going for in my business or something health related, that I just hear this negative voice in my head saying why I can't do it, what's holding, like what's the thing, oh, well, that would never work out because ... And you can fill in the blanks, because I know everybody can relate to this. But those are the things that hold me back, because if we're not aware of those thoughts, then we're not taking the action that we need to take for those specific goals. So it's just, I catch myself still doing it a lot. And so I'm trying to be more aware of when it's happening. And I would say that's really a huge one.
So it's not necessarily something you can identify and go, you know what, every day at noon, I talk badly to myself, but it's kind of a recurring habit of allowing that self-negative talk to just be a part of your day, that there's no day you go by yet where it doesn't say something at some point, whether it's for a long time or just one nasty thought. The habit is allowing it in your day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's still a habit, as you're saying. And so, but what the cool thing is, and I feel like this could be a whole nother conversation about the limiting thoughts and limiting beliefs that come into our brain. The thing is so many of us aren't aware that we can control that. And that really, it can be something that we can direct, we can flip off, we can change the script for ourselves.
Well, I think that goes back to our, episode 3 and 4 of talking about imposter syndrome and self-sabotage. A lot of times we've created, and I don't really like to label them as bad habits, but we've created habits that don't serve us because of whatever thing we believe about ourselves. I'm not a morning person, so I can't create a morning routine, right?
Ooh,
Or
I think that's a good one for a lot of people.
right? Or and I am one of those people that for a very long time has said I'm not a morning person, so the ability to create that habit is outside of my reach, when that's not true. Or some of the other things, when you're getting back into that self-sabotage mode, going, well, I'm not an athletic person, so I can't be the person, I can't create a gym habit. Or I'm not a healthy person, so I don't want to try that nutrition change, or whatever it is. And I think so many times we think that habits are part of our character and who we are, and we don't identify habits are just scientific. If you apply the scientific method to creating a habit, you will achieve it. It has nothing to do with who you are or who someone said you are. I think that's the biggest part. And that's what's been kind of the epiphany with me in the last 5 years of how to create new habits, really develop new habits, stop other things, and then also identify that there's different seasons, like everything else, for certain habits. Have you felt like you have been in different seasons, especially? I mean, what's crazy is 5 years ago we started a business together. You had no kids. You had just got married, right? And now you have 2 and 1 on the way. There's different seasons for different habits. What habits do you feel like you've added in as you become a parent?
Ooh, that's good. Scheduling time, the downtime for myself, where that was part of my day before. Obviously, when you don't have kids, you're
Right?
able
You
to
think
just,
you're so busy before kids, and then you add 3 more tiny humans. You're like, wait, I had so much time in the world. Why didn't I? But you need to stop and go, okay, doesn't matter what I didn't do. What am I going to do now?
yeah. And I think a lot of parents can relate to this, that I find that I really get drained the fastest when I don't have those moments to myself, because there have been plenty of days, plenty of times where I don't schedule it. And all of a sudden it's days and days and days. And I'm like, I haven't even had like 5 minutes to myself, other than like running to the bathroom and literally locking the door
Are
just
you
to
gonna say,
have
wait,
a
you can go
moment.
to the bathroom alone? That's not a thing.
And that's not even the thing. So it's being intentional and knowing that I need that time for me to be able to come back and be the best I can be for my family. But we tend to, as parents, just kind of keep going, whether it be with work or then we're with our family, running errands, which errands are not, taking care of yourself. It's maybe time
It's
alone
something
for
you
a
have to do,
moment,
right?
but
It's something you have to do. It's not something you get to do sometimes.
yeah, so I think it's being intentional with scheduling that time to be able to better myself so that I'm able to be better for everybody else around me. So now I want to flip all these questions, because they ended up being three good ones.
I know, I got an extra question in there.
I know you popped one in there. So let's come back to what is the habit that you would say that you've developed that you've really stuck with?
Well, I feel like, and especially why I mentioned different seasons, I'm in a transitioning season. So, I have my oldest son who is almost 8. And then I have the baby who is he's about 14 months old, right? And if anyone has tiny humans, what's great is you almost get into a groove and you create a new habit, and then something changes, right? They outgrow their nap, or they decide to go to sleep at a different time, or they're teething, whatever gets in your way. So it is definitely a seasonal time for me. And knowing, and you kind of have to accept, whenever I create a new habit around my baby's schedule, is that more than likely it's going to change, and I have to kind of let go of the control on that, which me personally, Chrissy, but our listeners might not. Control is a big challenge for me, and being in control. So kind of letting that go. So that one's a little bit more abstract. It's the habit of letting things go and knowing, my structure isn't going to be the same right now that it is going to be in 6 months. On the other side, a very specific habit that I have been working on since the beginning of the year sounds super simple, but it's making my bed. Super, super simple. And there have been some days where I'm completely consistent and I do it, and it's the first thing when I'm getting out of bed that I'm making it, because then it doesn't entice me to get back in bed. I'm up here in New England, it's kind of cold. Guess what? I like to get back in bed. I don't know if that's a thing in Florida. So I think that simple habit, and I will tell you, when my bed is made, it changes the whole trajectory of my day, which seems kind of crazy because you're like, really, just making your bed? But absolutely. And there's actually an entire book about Make Your Bed. Look it up. It's a good book. It's a quick read. But just the act of making my bed, it makes my entire room feel organized. And when I feel organized and clean, then the chaos slows down and it sets me up for success for the rest of the day, because I could control making my bed. And I've actually been working on it with my oldest son and using the scientific method. And I want him to own it, not me telling him, make your bed. When he gets up in the morning, we've been working on it for a week, he says, I'm going to make my bed. And it's the first thing his feet hit the floor. That's what he does before he's doing anything else. And we're only about a week in. So guess what? It hasn't been perfect every day, but I will report back in 90 days to see how that habit has developed.
I love that you're doing it with him, and that sometimes we think our kids are too young to do it, but I've been doing it with my older, she's only 3, and she gets upset if she goes to her bed at night and she says, my bed's not made. So we make it even right before she gets in, if she hasn't yet, even if she doesn't do it yet herself, it's just she's recognizing. So I love that you're having him, though, actually do it himself, because I mean, I've seen it pop up in all kinds of books from all kinds of authors and motivational speakers and people who talk about habits and how making your bed it's really just tacking off that first thing on your list of things to do for the day to feel accomplished. Because when we feel that, even if it's that little tiny minute feeling of accomplishment or well, I wouldn't say that's motivation, but accomplishment and confidence of having gotten something done already, you're then more likely to tack off other things. Because I know the days for sure that I don't make my bed, it ends up trailing the whole list of small things. And then, I'll wait to unload the dishwasher. And I think we all know, if you don't unload the dishwasher in the morning, the whole day goes.
It absolutely happened to me yesterday. So I can completely relate to that. And I think that's what it is, right? The feeling of success supports a new habit and an established habit. You still get to go, yay, I did that. I got to do that, right? And I think you're so right. Or, like you said, it trickles down on the end of the day. And then at the end of the day, you go to get back into bed. And either you're the person that's going to make it before you get back in, or you're going to be like me and I'm going to push the clothes that I didn't fold onto the floor because I give 0 Fs. And then I'm going to get into bed and make my side work for me, and my husband can figure it out when he decides to go to sleep. That is what's going to happen. And guess what? I don't sleep as well those nights because my watch tells me I don't.
I know. What do we do before these watches telling us how we sleep?
I'm not really sure, but I think it's absolutely. So as we're getting into all right, we've talked about how habits have worked their way into our life, but I really do want to share, well, how do you start and create your own successful habits? And I will tell you, if you haven't read, there's 2 books I really would suggest. Christy and I love Atomic Habits, which is by James Clear. And the one I'm just diving into, I can't say that I'm completely done with it, but it's just kind of, I can't really look for the word, but it's reassessing, and it's kind of also the same message that James Clear has, and it's by BJ Fogg, and it's called Tiny Habits. And it all goes back to the same idea. There's science behind habits, and it has nothing to do with your personality or your ability.
Right, because it actually changes your neural pathways in your brain, and that's what's going to have you doing different things to go for the goals that you're going for, because you're actually changing your brain. And now I want to jump to one other book because it just made me think of this. Changing the Habit of Being Yourself by Dr. Joe Dispenza. That book is so fascinating because he's a scientist. So it really is about the brain pathways and creating new neural pathways. And I've read it twice, and I've said before that I don't read many books twice, but that was one that I read twice. And I actually would read that one a third time because it was so good. And he's not even specific about habits, just about the neural pathways and how you can change your life with things. But anyway, I had to throw that one out because it's so good. But I think it's important to talk about the fact that it is actual chemistry in your brain that you're changing when you're changing habits, adding. And I do want to jump back really quick also to the fact that you said you just the habit of releasing that you had said before with your kids, releasing a schedule, like the habit of that is huge. And I think a lot really important because a lot of people can really relate to that. And like, oh yeah, I need to be able to roll with the tide, really, and release this
you can
control.
go in, you can go in with intention, go in with a plan, but don't let flexibility or inflexibility sabotage your success. That's really what happens is we're so stuck to the plan when for a season or two, and you know what, you're going to get to a season where no other tiny humans dictate your habits, but for right now, that's the season that I'm living in, and I have to be able to own that. And I love that we keep talking about it, but for the people that aren't really understanding, well, what do you mean about the science? I think about you guys while I'm driving. And what I was thinking about the other day is, so where I live, I've actually only lived here for not even 7 years, and I'm not from where I live now. I grew up in Burrillville, Rhode Island, and it's probably about an hour away from where I live now. So since I've moved here, guess what? I am attached to my maps, right? No matter where I go, like simple things. And I think, if I had grown up and stayed in my hometown, I wouldn't have had to think about these things. Oh, you got to go to a football game. I know where to bring you. But even simple things like where my son would go play soccer. Well, I don't know where that field is. So I have to put it in. Or, simple, more fun things like going to Target and maybe Starbucks. I don't actually know how to get there. So I have to put it in my GPS. Right? Well, I've been here 6 years. There are the places that I had to, at the beginning, put my GPS, and maybe it was for the first 4 or 5 times, but now I can get there with actually even thinking and sometimes arriving and going, holy shit, how did I even get here? Right? Because what I have done from me getting from my house to Target is I have dug that neural pathway over and over and over again, that it's automatic, it's on autopilot. But there are still some places that I don't know how to freaking get to, so I still have to rely on my GPS. So when you're thinking about starting a new habit, sometimes it can be overwhelming because you've never been there before, right? And someone else has to help you because you have that GPS. And I think of when I start a new habit, the GPS is the prompt for me. It's what is the thing that is telling me I have to do that habit. So for instance, with Landon and him, getting out of bed in the morning, that's his prompt to make the bed, right? For me, if I'm doing a workout, guys, I do not do a workout unless it is scheduled in my phone and there is an alarm. But I know as soon as that alarm goes off, either I already am dressed for my workout or that's going to be the first thing I go do, depending on what day it is. If I came from the library, I probably wasn't dressed to, get into a workout. But I think if you really think of this scientists as you're creating those new pathways, for us up here, if we do ever get snow this winter, just think about that. You get 2 feet of snow, nobody has walked in it, but you walk to the snowman, you walk back from the snowman, your kids walk to the snowman, they walk back. Now that pathway is all the way to the dirt, but there's still 2 feet of snow.
Absolutely. And to go along with what you're saying, as you're creating that new pathway, it takes extra energy. Well, and if it's being a habit, it's taking extra mental energy to actually actively set up that prompt or look for your GPS or set the habit and make the time for it. But once it becomes the actual habit of autopilot, as you mentioned with your car, now we've taken away some of that extra energy to save room for now the actual thing we're about to do. So it's actually in turn saving you energy to create it as a habit.
Absolutely. And I think along with the prompt is, we always go back to motivation. And this is kind of what BJ Fogg talks about in Tiny Habits is when you're thinking of a new habit, okay, well, how are you prompting yourself? What is the thing that's telling you to do the habit? But if you also made it really difficult, and I give the instance, guess what? I'm not going to clean my whole house in a day. but on Tuesdays, I clean the kids' bathroom. On Wednesday, I clean the downstairs bathroom. Whatever it is, make it bite size. You cannot eat a whale in one bite. You have to make it bite size so that you will do the habit more likely if it is attainable and easy. And at the end of the habit, you feel that successful feeling. So again, you do the habit again. If you're not feeling it, more than likely the habit's not going to be created. Right. And there is no time limit on habits. I know a lot of people talk about, you can create a habit in 30 days or 90 days. You need to do it as often as it takes you to become an autopilot. And not, again, self-criticism is also a habit, releasing that self-criticism. But I think it's, what is telling me to do that habit? How easy did I make it for myself? And what's the motivation behind it? Going back to vision, why do I want to add this habit into my day? Why is that important to me?
Because if you don't have that why, exactly, you're just never going to stick to it and why you're doing it. Yeah. So now to go into a couple of just minor tips on you've identifying your habit, or forming a habit. So whatever it is, whether it be and starting on one thing at a time, whether it be with working out or a relationship that you're working on in your family or a success goal, whatever it is, it's identifying the top couple of things that are going to move your needle forward. So even if it's one, it could just be one thing, one simple thing, maybe it's two or three, but it's identifying what those top things are. And just also knowing that the habits that you can start creating, it doesn't have to be monumental. Like you said, cleaning the whole house, that, for
that gets me overwhelmed and high. And then I go into, I'm not doing anything.
Yeah, either I do it all or I do nothing. Yeah. So it's something that actually doesn't have to take much time in the scheme of things of your day, but it's identifying what those things are that are going to move the needle forward to your goal. Even if it's literally 1% a day, 1% over time is going to accumulate and be a lot. It's going to absolutely show some change. So once you're identifying, you have your prompt, as Jen had mentioned, which I think is really great because that is what can kickstart you. So whatever it is that your prompt may be to get you going, but also along with that is stacking. So you could think of it in the same way. I think of it as stacking, and James Clear with Atomic Habits, he labeled it as stacking, and I really like this too. But maybe it's stacking it with something you already do in your day. So for instance, when I make my tea, like I started stacking my journaling and reading with my tea because I know I'm going to make my tea. It used to be coffee, now it's tea, but I knew I would.
The prompt, right? The tea is the thing that makes you do the things.
So then you stack it with something you're already going to do. You're doing the thing, or maybe it's, for me, there was another point in my business where my kids had a certain nap time and they nap at the same time. So that I was stacking as soon as they go down for the nap. I am not allowed to go down to the kitchen and start futzing around and doing all the other things I know will take my attention because I like to organize. It's okay, kids are down, I stack it right to my office, to my desk to get things done. So it's stacking those things, and that can be so helpful because again, it takes off the extra mental energy of thinking about it, which then comes down to the next part, which is scheduling. So maybe that schedule has to do with stacking, but it's knowing when in your day you're going to get this habit done. Because if it's not on your schedule, as Jen said, with your workout is a good point. And I think we all can relate to that when it comes to working out for sure. We have great intentions in the morning and I know I'm going to get it done. I have plenty of time, and it's not going to happen if you don't schedule it 100%. So if you need to schedule it and stack it with something else, stack it. I find that to be really, really helpful, but either way, it has to be in your calendar, in your phone. Well, maybe not your phone, but whatever it is you do to schedule things.
Yeah.
And that can be the most helpful.
Well, and then the last one that I want to include, for me, I have found this helpful. One of the other things I've established relatively recently is I read a lot of personal development, right? And that's my go-to. However, I was feeling a little sad because I felt like because I was reading so much personal development, I actually wasn't reading anything for for entertainment, right? And then my other goal was to get away from watching so much TV. So my new habit included a if this, then that. And it was if I'm reading my personal development and if it's my 10-minute goal, then I get to read my book for entertainment. So what it did is it kept my first habit of reading my personal development. It gave me my second habit of reading for joy, and it accomplished removing the distraction and really loss of time of watching television. So if you're a person that definitely needs that extra positive reinforcement and that success value, give yourself an if I do this, then I do that. So
Oh, that's great. I
right?
love that, Jen.
Right? So, and it can be anything. And I think it goes back to the idea of these things don't have to be astronomical. You don't have to change the world with your habit. But if you're doing that one small thing, so because maybe it is, maybe you don't feel like you get to watch your favorite show and you're allowed to, indulge and entertain. So, if I clean this room on Tuesday because I said I was going to clean the kids' bathroom on Tuesday. If I do this, then I get to watch one episode of my favorite show. However you want to treat yourself, believe me, cleaning the kids' bathroom every Tuesday is going to be a habit because you want to get to see what happens next on whatever show it is that you're really attached to, and interrupt your binging. You're going to feel a lot more accomplished. So definitely I want to suggest that is if you're feeling like you're struggling, reward yourself. If you're doing this habit, then what are you getting to do because of it?
Yeah. And I also like that you said when it came to your books, like your 10 minutes of personal development, coming back to, okay, your habit doesn't have to be even a half hour. It doesn't even have to be an hour, like whatever it is, 10 minutes, 10 pages of a book. I don't know, whatever it is you're working on, like those small chunks. And that is what's most going to make you feel most successful. And also when I'm talking to people about, say, implementing a new fitness routine into their lives, I always suggest just start with 10 to 15 minutes. You will still see and feel a difference 100%. If you have not done any working out at all, 10 to 15 minutes, either a day or 3 days a week, like you will feel and see a difference. And that is going to make you feel successful so that you're not feeling like you're taking on the world and like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to get to the gym for an hour a day. Like that's just so huge. Make it bite-sized, make it attainable so that you feel successful. And then once you set that as the habit, taking away all that extra mental energy from just building it, then you'll want to add on to it afterwards.
Yeah, and the season changes, right? And that habit gets to kind of evolve as you evolve in it. So I love all this. I think we could keep talking for about another hour on habits, but I do hope that you found, our stories with habits and just the suggestions we are on creating your own. And before we even finish up, I want to also suggest to you, I use the word bad, but they're just habits that don't serve you. But if you actually don't take inventory of your daily habits, you're also getting in your way. So what are the things you may or may not realize that you are doing that's pushing the needle forward and helping you, or the things that are setting you back? I know for me, scrolling is not my friend and does not serve me. And it's one of those things you have to go, okay, this isn't something that's going to get me where I want to be. How can I maybe, if this, then that? And I just love all of the stuff and everything that you shared. Chrissy, is there anything else you want to share before we wrap it up?
No, I again could keep talking about this. So I'm glad we were able to throw in some of our favorite books around the subject too, because that's where things can be helpful. And then James Clear, who wrote Atomic Habits, you can find him on Instagram because I love following him because I'm a quote person. And he always has different quotes from his books, but just also great things surrounding habits that he's a great one to follow. And I think it's just at James Clear on Instagram. So thanks so much for joining us today, guys.
Yes, thank you for being listeners. And as always, you can join our community. You can find us on Instagram at Happy Healthy Skeptical, and newly available if you want to send us any messages, you want to join the conversation with us, you can email us at happyhealthyskeptical@gmail.com. We hope to have you listen to us again. So till next